Today's video is about tuning your rig, and the reason that I wanted to make it a complete video is because I've met a whole heap of cruisers out there that would love to play with their rig a little bit and gain a better understanding of it, but they're just not quite confident enough. So this video is mainly for people that want to learn a little bit more about their rigging, or that need a little bit more knowledge and confidence in order to play with it. Now, if tuning your rig is not in your wheelhouse, then it's absolutely fine. I think of it like tuning a guitar that you have at home. A lot of people take their guitars to the shop and they're happy to get them professionally tuned every single time. And if you're not confident and don't want to play with it at all, then that 100% is the right decision for you. But for those people that, if we're using the guitar analogy again, have been playing guitar for a little while and want to start learning how to tune their own rig, this video is for you.
If you enjoy this video, consider clicking the subscribe button and follow our adventures sailing around the world. Hi, we're the James family.
Are you sick of your day-to-day life? Ever thought about doing something different?
Well, we did just that.
We bought an unfinished aluminium catamaran and we're fixing her up as we sail around the world.
Come along for the journey and click subscribe.
Daddy? Mommy? Charlie? James.
Now, to start with, in Australia, there is no formal qualification for being a rigger. So as long as you can get the relevant insurance and show that you've had enough relevant experience, then you can call yourself a rigger in Australia. So theoretically, by those standards, I could call myself a rigger. There is formal qualifications on the commercial side, which I'm used to, which is your basic and advanced riggers, but they pertain to crane lifts, tagging, lifting equipment, nothing that cross-references to the boating world really, apart from when you're trying to work out angles and strengths and bits and pieces. But for tuning a rig, not designing a rig, not deciding the size of the wires or anything like that, it really is quite simple, and there is some basic rules of thumbs that you can do. And I believe that if you've been on your boat for quite a while and you're quite familiar with it, no one's going to care more about your boat than you are, and no one's going to know more about your boat than you are. And once you're familiar with your boat's language, you are the best person to tune your own rig, because the boat will be able to tell you with regards to how fast it's going, by the noises it makes, how it travels through the water, as to how we're going with tuning a rig. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run through a couple of basics first, what the basic words are and parts of the rig, and then we'll start talking through how they affect and take it all from there. There's two types of rigging. There's standing rigging and running rigging, and there's lots of different ways of classifying it, but essentially the standing rigging is what holds your mast up, and then the running rigging is what moves moving parts like your boom or your sails and operates the sails going up and down and bits and pieces from there. Now, the rigging that we're talking about tuning today is your standing rigging. Now, when you tune your standing rigging, you're looking at several main things. You're looking at the shape of your mast and the effect the wires have on that and your vessel, and you're also looking at the tension that's in those wires as well. Now, when you look at this here is a rigging plan for our boat. It's a fantastic rigging plan. Unfortunately, this isn't the rig that we have, so it's not accurate, so we've had to make a few little adjustments. Now, when you're looking at the shape of the mast, you look here, you've got two main things with the mast when it's at this aspect here, which is the side-on aspect. You're looking at pre-bend, and what pre-bend is if you get the top and the bottom of the mast and then bend it in the middle. You can see here for this mast it's meant to be 350. We've actually changed it to 200 mils is what our pre-bend is, because we've got a 20 meter mast and that's what we believe the pre-bend should be. Then you have rake. Now rake is different to pre-bend. Pre-bend is how much it bends in the middle. Rake is the aspect as in, is it leaning back or is it leaning forward? If you have it leaning back, the center of effort is going to be back further in the boat. Depending on when your center of lateral resistance is, that could create weather helm. If you have it too far forward, again, you can bow steer and have adverse effects there as well. Now, when you're dealing with your rake, there's a lot of different contributing factors that come into how much rake a vessel should have. It all depends on the age of the sails, again, where the center of effort is on these sails as well. Are they really bagged out and luffed at the front, which brings your center of effort just back a little bit, or are they nice and flat and fully battened, not batten mains, all that kind of stuff. So this is where knowing your boat language really comes into play. So your boat will tell you what it likes and what it doesn't like, and therefore that can help affect how much rake you do have and how much you don't. If you're on a production boat, you're very, very lucky, because most production boats, they will tell you how much pre-bend should be in there and how much rake they're designed to have. As in our boat, if it had this rig, it's meant to have 1.5 meters worth of rake. Now, we believe, due to the rig that we have, it should only be about 1200, because we've got less pre-bend as well, and we're bringing all of those ratios down a bit. With the pre-bend, the way you measure the pre-bend is you've got your main halyard from the top of your mast, you get it nice and tight to the bottom of your mast, and you see how far off it is in the center. And that's how you can measure your pre-bend. How you measure your rake is you get your main halyard again, you get something nice and heavy, and you hang it off there, and where it ends up off the back of your mast here will be your rake angle. Now, these are all just basic ways of doing it. The next thing you want to check is the mast from the different angle, is whether it's in column or not. And what that means is, what is the shape of the mast? Generally speaking, especially if you've had your rigging replaced and then you've got a few miles underneath your keel, you'll find that the wires may stretch and bed in slightly differently, and therefore it needs to be retuned and brought back into column, which means everything straightened back up again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go outside, we'll have a look at the wires, how they affect the mast. We'll have a look to see if our mast is in column, whether it's nice and straight, how you check that, and then we'll have a look at the rake, have a look at the pre-bend. And with us, we're trimmed slightly by the stern at the moment. So what that means is, if you look at where our design waterline is here, we're actually deeper in the stern and about the same in the bow. So we're about 6 centimeters by the stern. What that's done is that has created us to have more rake due to the way the vessel's sitting in the water, and therefore that makes our center of effort further back due to our against our center of lateral resistance, which is our dagger boards, and it's creating weather helm. So we need to actually slope our mast forward just a little bit to reduce that, to really bring all the pressure off all our running gear and make us sail a little bit more efficiently. But we'll go outside and we'll check it all out.
So before we tune the rig, we have to drop the shade sail. So that's this one here. So it's not only using the main halyard, we also need to access the boom. So we'll take all of this down and then tune it.
First thing to check for is that the mast is in column. So the way we do that is two main ways. First way is we look up the edge of the mast and see if it looks like it's bent either way. Now, our rigging is fully bent in, and I've already tuned this 7 months ago, so it's all looking pretty gosh darn good. When you do it, a lot of people say that you don't use your track. Try and use an edge of the mast or something like that that you're looking up. Our track is built in, so it still could get warped and things like that. So using these edges here and going across to the other side is really, really handy to see if it's bent out either way. The other thing that you do is you come round the front of the mast and you just look up. Just move your hand, look up and down, see if you can see it leaning one way or the other. With us, you have to look around the radar. And to me, that looks really, really good. That makes everything so much simpler, because when we are dealing with rake or pre-bend or even the tension of our stays, we do everything uniformly. The second thing that we're looking at is pre-bend. Now, when you're looking at the pre-bend, you're looking for a few different things. You're looking to see if roughly at the center of the mast, how big the gap is between your mainsail halyard and the mast. To see, you know, for us, we were hoping for about 200 mil or 20 centimeters. But you also want to look at the shape of it. Does it go straight for a bit and then bend abruptly, depending on which stays you have tighter or looser? Or is it a more uniform bend all the way up and through? So with our one, not sure if you can see it, it's a little windy today, blowing the halyard round, and because we're in a marina, we've got our stern to the wind. I can't quite seem to get it tight enough, but our pre-bend is actually not quite 20 centimeters. It's a little bit less than 20 centimeters. And when you do look at the shape of the mast, looking up and down, and the best thing to do is to move your head slightly as you do it, going up and down. You see if it's a uniform bend or not. And for us, we need our cap shrouds to be a little bit tighter. So our caps at the top there, she's got a nice bend at the bottom here, going up past our lowers and our inner forestay, and then the caps are slightly loose. Either that or the forestay needs to be eased off, but the caps need to be brought on. So what we're probably going to find here is that the rake, when the mast is like this at rest, isn't actually too bad. So because our plan is to bring the mast forward a little bit, rather than tighten the caps, which will press down on the mast and put more bend in it, I'm actually going to tighten the forestay, and that'll do the same thing, but it'll also slant the mast forward. Then we'll put a weight on the halyard, which we've got a water drum, and we'll have a look and see what our rake looks like. So here we've exposed the bottle screw for our forestay, and basically what you've got is a couple of, you can have a bottle screw or a turnbuckle. Turnbuckles are things that are open in the center. Most modern boats do have turnbuckles. When we replace these, we're going to replace them with turnbuckles. Now, the reason we're going to replace them with turnbuckles is because you can see the condition of the thread, you can see the condition of it, whether it's going to warp or anything's going to happen. Now, we undo the locking screws. On this one, we are going to tighten it up a bit. Now, because we are bringing the mast forward, we will tighten this up, but we'll also need to tighten up the inner forestay. If we only tighten this one up, we're going to lose our pre-bend in our mast and flatten it off. So if we bring the other one forward, we'll do it as well. So anytime you play with anything, you sort of want to go through the 3 checks afterwards as well. So you want to check to see that the mast is nice and straight, that the pre-bend is in there, and you want to see what your rake is. Now for us, we're reducing the rake in the mast, as in we're leaning it forward, and we're doing that. There's a lot of contributing factors, but one of the main ones is our sails are quite old, and so the center of effort in the sail is further aft because they're quite baggy in the luff. So we use the back half of the sail mainly for the power. If we use the front half, because they're so baggy, it disturbs the flow and slows us down. And if that's the case and the center of effort is further back, then we need to bring the mast forward to bring that center of effort forward so it's opposite our center of lateral resistance. The center of lateral resistance for us is our dagger boards. So they're what stop us going sideways in the water. But we'll undo these we'll do this one up a bit, we'll do the baby stay up a bit, check the tension, and then we'll have a look at our rake, see if it's come forward, and we will have a look at our pre-bend and make sure that the mast is in column. Put some more in a sec. You got me?
I got you. Look at her. She's falling on the water.
Oh.
She needs to stay there. She needs to stay in the water.
He needs to stay there.
Now, whenever you're tightening these up, one very important thing to do is to make sure that you don't twist the wire, because all the wires are wound and you can loosen them up and you can fatigue them that way. So you always want to hold the wire whenever you're doing it, and then turn the bottom one. Now, they are fairly hard to turn. Now we've managed to get 5 turns on that forestay there, and what that's done is it's brought the top of the mast forward. So now what's happened is our pre-bend is a lot less, it's flattened out the mast. So what we need to do is come down on baby stay here. One thing I noticed when I was doing my rig inspection was that this one here is quite loose. Now what that does is it stops it bending in the front here. We're going to leave it loose, we're going to pull down on the baby stay, which will then compress the bottom section of the mast, put more pre-bend in there, and then make this one tight. So we'll do that first, then we'll come back and check this stay, check our pre-bend, check our rake, and then the next step would be to go for a sail and see if the boat tells us whether we've done the right thing or not. So now this stay here is, it's actually, I don't know how to show it to you, it's a lot tighter than it was before by doing up that baby stay, and we didn't ease out on the lowers there. So now when we look at the final thing, I'll just pop up here. This here is to measure our rake, so that's full of water, so you've got approximately 20 kilos there. So you can see from the top of the mast coming down all the way to the bottom how far away from the mast it is. Then if we were to ease it out and put it next here, pre-bend is how much the mast is bent in the center, and then we check again one final time just to make sure that everything is in column, and it looks really good. The last thing to do is just to go around all the bottle screws and make sure the retaining nuts are nice and tight. Sometimes you'll have split pins or cotter pins that you put in turnbuckles, just to make sure that they're all set and ready to go. Then you take the boat sailing, and hopefully she'll tell you that all the decisions you've made are the right decisions. Now, for those of you who have stuck out this video so far, thank you very much. And I just wanted to go over a few things. Now, the first one is, if you are new to tuning a boat, I highly recommend that you just do small adjustments to begin with. Don't just go and do great big ones. Also, I wouldn't recommend, if you haven't done much tuning, doing it on a boat that you've just jumped on cold on, or that you haven't done a few miles under your keel, because to do the finer tuning, just like tuning a guitar, you want to get used to your guitar, because if you're not too experienced with the boat and you're only doing minor adjustments, it's very hard to know what the boat likes, and every boat is different, as in we've got a little Titanic, an aluminium boat that doesn't flex very much at all. You'll get some boats where they'll recommend that you have 30% load on your cap shrouds, but if you put 30% worth of the braking strain on them, you'll actually start bending the hulls upwards and start flexing your boat. So there's a lot of different variables that do come into the finer points of tuning and getting used to your boat. There are general rules of thumb, and you can always go by them, and that's great. To go over some of the general rules of thumb is when you're looking at the boat, and you can see here we talked about the mast pre-bend, which is the angle in the middle. We talked about its rake, which is where it is in relation to the waterline, and then we also talked about it being in column. And you look at the stays here, so we've got a forestay here. The opposing stays to the forestays are the cap shrouds. So when you're looking at this section here where they're all supported, I wanted to slant the mast forward, so I eased off on the cap shrouds and I pulled in on the forestay, and that brings the whole mast forward. But what it also did is it flattened out the mast a bit, and we had a little bit less pre-bend. So therefore, in order to get the bend back in, I tightened up on the baby stay. Now what I found is that my lowers, which are the two opposing stays here, they weren't very tight. So I didn't loosen them off, I just tightened straight up on them. And also on our mast, we've got a forward diamond here that the radar is attached to. That stay was also very loose. So by pulling down on that, I compressed that section of the mast, brought it forward to get the pre-bend, and when I compressed it, it also helped with the pre-bend, and it tightened up that inner stay. If the mast isn't in column and does have a bend or a bow or a bit of an S in it, it could be as simple as loosening a cap shroud on one side and tightening up on the other, or a lower on one side and tightening up on the other. Generally speaking, it won't be the D's, which are these diagonal ones in here, or diamonds. Now what their main purpose is, they stop the mast from twisting. That's what they do. So when you are doing your rigging inspection, you want to get used to the tension that's on them, and you'll do that just by feel and by giving them a wiggle, and they should all be a fairly uniform tension. Sometimes you may need to tighten up the ones on the outside of the spreaders to bow at this side and loosen off the other side, but generally speaking it'll be one of the bigger outside ones. But again, you want to get used to your own rig, used to your own boat, see what it looks like. There's a lot of different opinions on how tight the stay should be. There's mathematical equations depending on the weight and size of your boat. The general rule of thumb is if the boat is fully powered up under full sail, that's a full head sail and a full main. And fully powered up for a catamaran can be fairly different. For us, around about 15 knots is fully powered up. Then our leeward, or our stays that are on the lower side, you should be able to bang them and they have just a little bit of slop in them. They shouldn't be bone tight, and that is a way of seeing the tension of the stays, because it does depend on the type of boat you have. For us, because we're an aluminium boat, we can have them a little bit tighter. But yeah, the key points to remember is, if you're new to it, small adjustments rather than big adjustments. Listen to your boat, it'll tell you how it's going by its speed. If it doesn't look right, then trust your instincts. There's a very good chance that it isn't right. And if you're at all confused, consult YouTube. There's plenty of videos out there. I'm sure someone will have the same rig as you. You can have a look, see how they do it, and take it from there. But apart from that, good luck out there, guys, and hope to see a few more of you guys tuning your rig and having a look, at least to see if it is in column, and to see what your rake is and what it's doing.
Thank you so much for watching. If you are enjoying our videos and would like to help support us making videos and content, consider becoming a Patreon. The link is in the description below. And don't forget to click those like and subscribe buttons, and we will see you all next week.